Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 273. I'm Phil Graham. Today, my friends, I'm going to be sharing 3 Facebook and Instagram ad audiences that are working really well right now. These 3 targeting audiences we're consistently using. If you're not using these 3 audiences, you might be leaving a lot of money on the table. So make sure you test them as soon as possible. So first of all, thank you guys so much for being here. I love doing this podcast. This is such a great community that we've been building up over the last 5.5 years. And I really appreciate you listening. And I hope you're having a great week. And if you guys do want to get in touch, maybe you have some ideas for episodes for a podcast topic, or maybe you have some help that you need with learning Facebook ads the right way, one-on-one through coaching, or maybe you actually want somebody to run your ads for you. If any of those are the case, then you can go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and we can definitely connect. So I want to jump right into the content. As usual, we're going to keep it short, sweet, full of value, and very actionable. And let's talk about the 3 audiences you should be using and testing right now. Number 1 is a 5% lookalike audience. We continue to test this because in the past, I never went above 1% because it just didn't work very well. Whereas in the last 6 months or so, 5% started working really well for us. We still would always test little things here and there, and it started popping, and then we would give more budget to it, and it started doing even better. So 1% is still my favorite when it comes to lookalike. However, 5% is doing really well in a lot of cases. So I highly recommend you guys test a 5% lookalike audience if you have not done that. Also, if you have done it, let's say you've tried it and it didn't work. Well, if it didn't work, you need to know why. Was it because of the audience, or did you just have creative that didn't work? Or was the lookalike based off of something that wasn't optimized? You know, if you did it based off of people who have bought, if you didn't have enough purchasers, then maybe there wasn't enough data for Facebook to look for the same types of people. So instead of making the lookalike off of purchasers, you might make it off of add to carts or page views or leads or something else. So make sure to not have a closed mind. If you've tried this out and it didn't work, there's different variations of doing this. I would definitely be testing many different ways if I were you, because it's worked extremely well in a lot of situations for us. So that's number 1, a 5% lookalike audience. Audience number 2 is what I call a multi-stack segmented audience. Now, this is where we stack a couple different things. We don't want to combine too many things, because if something doesn't work, or even when it does work, I need to know why. So if we have like 20 different interests, we're never going to know if 1 or 2 of those interests made it work. We need to know quickly which factor made an ad work or not work, so we can fix it or do more of it if it is working. So I don't do too many in one, but here's what I like to do. I typically will combine 1 demographic, 1 behavior, and 1 interest. And that will be my multi-stack segmented audience. Again, 1 demographic, 1 behavior, and 1 interest. What we do is we also, depending on the interest and the demographic, and sometimes the behavior, we also match our ad copy to this type of person. When you do it right, you're usually going to be able to segment your ad copy to really match who you're targeting in a great way. And that's where it becomes very powerful. So for example, for a demographic, you could obviously have an age range, but I would go beyond that and have something additional. You could have parents, for example. You could have something like a birthday or anniversary that's coming up. You know, there's all kinds of different things, job titles. There's many different ways you could go when it comes to demographics. So I would pick one of those, and then I would pick a behavior. One of the behaviors I like a lot is purchase behavior. it's somebody who has clicked a shop now button in the last week, that's really good. But there's a lot of other behaviors that are effective as well. So look through those behaviors. There's not just one that's good. There's tons of them that are really good. So make sure you test different behaviors. And then in addition to that, you also do one interest. And there's tons of interests. It can be based off of so many different things. So make sure that your primary interest, whatever you choose, you're matching your ad copy to the interest. And here's something interesting that I found out is that your interest does not always have to even match your product or service. For example, if you've got a good demographic and a good behavior, and then you choose an alternate interest that is a little different. For example, let's say that you are using an interest that's something about a TV show or sports team. And then you talk about that sports team or TV show in your ad copy as it relates to whatever product or service you might have or how you think about things. That can be really powerful. When Russell Wilson used to play for the Seahawks, now he's in Denver, but when he used to play for the Seahawks, we ran an ad for a dentist and we talked about loving the Seahawks and how this dentist, he really appreciated Russell Wilson's work ethic because he was known to come in really early and stay late and study film and all that stuff. And that motivated this dentist to always stay on top of all the latest innovations when it comes to dentistry and helping his patients out. And so we did the local targeting and chose a demographic and a behavior and then added an interest of Seahawks. And we talked about Russell Wilson's work ethic and how the dentist does things differently because of that. That kind of stuff crushes it. So you can do that, or you can do something that's just completely specific to your product or service. You should test it all. But that ad is very powerful. Again, I call it a multi-stack segmented audience. You could do 50 of them. Like there's so many different ways you can go. And some of them are going to fail and others are going to succeed. That's where data comes in. You should be testing all this stuff. And then when it fails, for any that do, you need to find out why so that you can fix it and learn from it. And when it succeeds and wins, you also need to find out why so you can scale that to the moon and do more with it. Okay, and last but not least, the audience number 3 that I recommend you guys run is a broad, warm retargeting audience. And by the way, in just a second, I'm going to cover a couple pro tips for audiences that apply to any audience that you're targeting. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But in terms of your broad, warm retargeting audience, that is the audience that is everyone in your warm audience. You're not excluding anybody. You're actually including anybody and everyone that's even remotely warm. They've seen an ad and they engaged with it, or they watched one of your videos, or they clicked to go to your website, like anybody and everybody in that warm retargeting audience. Hopefully, most people are already doing at least this one. It's definitely more common than the first 2 options that I gave you, but I needed to include this just because it's so powerful and it can work so well. I wanted to make sure you are doing this. Also, let's say you're doing it and you're not getting the results you love, then make sure that you're tweaking some things, whether that's the ad copy or where they're going after the ad or something like that, because these audiences are very, very powerful. Also, on my last episode, hopefully you heard that, we talked about running segmented retargeting ads. This one is different. This broad retargeting is literally retargeting the kitchen sink. Anybody who's come into contact with you in the last 6 months to a year is going to be in this retargeting audience. And I highly recommend you run that on a consistent basis. So the 3 audiences that are working right now that I recommend you guys run, again, are the 5% lookalike, the multi-stack segmented audience, and the broad, warm retargeting audience. And then lastly, I've got a couple pro tips for you guys when it comes to audiences. Number 1, don't exclude your recent buyers. I was working with an e-commerce company and they wanted to exclude people that have bought in the last 2 months, yet they sold hundreds of different products. And I was like, that's crazy. Like a lot of your sales are going to come from repeat buyers, people that bought something, they're happy and they want to buy more. Don't exclude them. Now, obviously, if you only sell one thing and somebody just bought, then obviously you want to exclude them. But in all other cases, I wouldn't exclude them at all. Also, don't exclude people that like your page. Like I see that all the time. That's a huge opportunity for more business. That's a great option for targeting. Another mistake I see people make is targeting by income. I don't use that at all. I don't like it. I don't think it's very accurate, and I don't think it's effective at all. For one thing, there's a lot of 18-year-olds who are walking around with $1,000 phones in their pockets. People can afford what they feel like they really want and need. But even beyond that, let's say you have a really high-end service or product. The income targeting, in my opinion, is not accurate. So what I prefer is, if you really want to focus on just certain types of income, then I do it by zip code. For us, it's a lot more powerful. Another good tip is to have a really good mix of large and small audiences that are both cold, warm, and segmented. That's extremely powerful. Don't just have one type of audience or one way of doing things. Mix it up. And last but not least, the final tip is to, of course, use data to make great decisions. There's always ways to succeed. The data is going to tell you what's working and what isn't. And when something isn't working, you have to figure out why and fix it. When it is working, figure out why and scale it and do more of it. So my friends, episode 273 is in the books. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you on the next episode. If you do want to connect, philgrahamdigital.com or DM me on Instagram, philgrahamdigital. I will talk to you next time. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.